Coming up on ESPN2, Carlos Delgado is seeking the first Triple Crown in 23 years and a wild card spot for his Jays, while New York is already set, but the Yanks want to send a message to their division rival. At 10 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2, the Dodgers invade the desert, having lost 6 of their last 8. They're virtually out of the race for the postseason. Their ace, Kevin Brown, hopes to spoil the NL wildcard race for the D-backs, who go into the game without Steve Finley. Finley got hurt last night. All coming up. Coming up here on ESPN2, Roger Clemens tries to make it 9 straight wins. He's 8-0 in his last 14 starts as Roger and the Yanks take on Toronto. Hi, everybody. Bill Pito in our Wednesday Night Baseball studios. It is great to have you with us. As we wait for the Yanks, let's take a look at how the Mets fared this afternoon against the Milwaukee Brewers. The Mets won yesterday. How will they do today? Jay Payton on third. Brewers up 1-0. Mike Piazza striking out for the 4th time in the game, so it stays 1-0. Next man up, though, Robin Ventura, and he doubles down the left field line. Payton comes in to score, and in the bottom of the 9th, the Mets able to tie it at 1. That's the score, bottom 10. Jay Payton, a swing and a drive. A 3-run home run wins the ball game. Payton's 14th of the year. Mets win at 4-1. Now within a game and a half of the Braves in the National League East, and 5 games in front of Arizona in the wild card race. This reminder, the Indians and the Yankees on ESPN Friday night, coming your way at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. But that's Friday. How about tonight? The Yankees and the Blue Jays will take you out to Yankee Stadium and have all the updates for you throughout. Enjoy the game, everybody.
Among the top 4 in each of the American League Triple Crown categories leads the Blue Jays in their wild card hopes into the Bronx tonight, while David Justice and Derek Jeter getting ready to rumble with the migrating birds from the north. Welcome to Yankee Stadium, where the 2-time defending and 25-time World Series champions are now dealing in magic numbers and fine-tuning for the postseason, while the Blue Jays are currently on the outside looking in the American League wild card race. Welcome to Yankee Stadium, everybody. Along with Mike Macfarlane, I'm Charlie Steiner. We're going to see Roger Clemens on the hill for the Yankees tonight for the 38-year-old right-hander. Really, it's been a tale of 2 seasons. Why is that?
Well, I think health, most importantly, has to do with everything. Roger Clemens, I don't think, was healthy at the start of this season. Since the All-Star break, coming back 8-0 with that 2.25 ERA, as you can see. Allow him to throw that fastball 95 miles an hour into the 8th inning on his last start. Great arm action on his forkball, getting back to the effective pitcher that Roger Clemens is.
Clemens right now pitching as well as he ever has as a member of the New York Yankees. At the beginning of the year, the Toronto Blue Jays were thought to be on the road to the postseason with the young pitching arms. But instead, it's been all hitting, and it's been Carlos Delgado who's led the way.
Just an amazing year for Carlos Delgado. Everyone talking about the Triple Crown threat that he is. But the people behind him, Tony Batista, Brad Fulmer, having outstanding seasons, giving him some protection as well. Carlos Delgado, the strikeouts are down, the walks are up this year, not swinging at pitches that he shouldn't be going after, just having an outstanding season.
Manager Jim Fregosi in his 2nd season as the manager of the Toronto Blue Jays. His team begins tonight 3 games behind the Cleveland Indians in the race for the wild card, and this will be his starting lineup. It'll be Shannon Stewart in left field, to be followed by Alex Gonzalez and Dave Martinez, who has done an outstanding job since coming over in the late season trade. Carlos Delgado has been the star of the Blue Jays, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in the Triple Crown categories, 2nd in the league in hitting, 3rd in home runs, and 4th in RBIs. Brad Fulmer, the DH, to be followed by Tony Batista. Who would have thought he'd have 38 home runs this season? Darren Fletcher is the catcher. Jose Cruz Jr. is the center fielder. Vicky Morandini will be at 2nd base, and he'll be hitting 9th. Meanwhile, manager Joe Torre, he has been down this before with the New York Yankees, looking for his 3rd consecutive World Series title, and 4 in the past 5 years. And you know, Mike, watching the Yankees here in the last month or so, they keenly are aware when August turns to September.
Well, you talk about a team that's able to hit the switch and pick it up a notch. The New York Yankees, like you said, Charlie, have been down this road before. You have pure professionals at each and every position. They know how to win ball games. They know exactly what their job is. Don't try and do too much. They have confidence in the people batting behind them. You're starting to see the pitching staff come around. Andy Pettit, Roger Clemens been throwing outstanding. But again, they know how to pick it up a notch when it comes down to the final month of the season to close teams out.
Jose Canseco, it'll be the DH tonight for the Yankees. You take a look at the Toronto Blue Jays, who have had all sorts of problems facing the New York Yankees. You have to go back to 1994 since the Blue Jays actually beat the Yankees here in New York. And tonight, they've got a mighty tall order facing Roger Clemens, who is now trotting out to the hill. And Roger making his 29th start of the season with a record of 12-6. And his ERA of 3 1/3 is second only to the great Pedro Martinez. Clemens now pitching as well as he has ever since coming to New York.
Talking to him earlier today in the locker room, having a great time. He's healthy finally, and like we talked about in the opening, the health was an issue early on in the year. He had some tightness, lost his mechanics, went and worked with Billy Connors, found it again, and 85 miles an hour on the forkball, 95 mile an hour on the fastball. When Roger Clemens is most effective, he's getting that swing and a miss on the splitter, and locating the fastball.
Roger Clemens went down on the disabled list on the 15th of June, and in 2 weeks went down to Tampa and had the pitching doctor, Billy Connors, repair him. And we talked to Billy before the game about the redo.
Fundamentals. We went through some fundamentals of location drills. We looked at a Maddox film of how Maddox keep it simple and not do a lot of things, and just basically be the aggressor again. Be the Clemens that is the leader, where these other guys will force feed off of him.
And one of the things you and I were talking about before the game, Mike, is when Roger Clemens was struggling in the last season and a half for the Yankees, it seemed as if he was falling in love with the splitter and was not going back and rearing back and firing with that good old country hardball.
Exactly right, and throwing a curveball, which you see him throwing right now, just another pitch to show him. Roger Clemens is a power pitcher. If you're going to get beat with your fastball, and too many times he was relying on that splitter, hoping people would chase, and then trying to punch someone out with the fastball. It wasn't working. He was pitching backwards.
Defensively for the Yankees, behind Roger tonight, the infield of Grotius, Jeter, Knobloch, and Tino Martinez. David Justice in left field. Clay Bellinger is in center. Bernie Williams now out with a pulled calf muscle, but he's expected to be back in the next day or two. Paul O'Neill in right. Jorge Posada is the catcher. And inevitably, there is questions about the second baseman, Chuck Knobloch. And in talking to Joe Torre before the game, he says, you take Chuck Knobloch as the complete package, and what a great leadoff hitter he's been, although he's continuing to have his problems on the routine throws from second base.
But still, he sets the table for Derek Jeter and everyone else down the line when he's the leadoff hitter. Outstanding guy, knows how to get on base.
And now we're ready to go. Shannon Stewart's going to lead it off for the Blue Jays. And Shannon has had an outstanding season, hitting .331 with 19 home runs and 64 RBIs. And most impressively, his on-base percentage of .376. So he's been setting the table so that the big boppers, Delgado and Fulmer and Batista, can knock him in. Here comes the first pitch of the ball game. It's a fastball wrapped off to the right side.
That's a pretty evident sign. These Toronto Blue Jays know Roger Clemens has been pitching very well. As a hitter, you go up there, first straight thing you see, you let it fly.
And Roger, who was throwing 95 miles an hour in his last start last Friday night in Boston as late as the 8th inning, is throwing now about as hard as he ever has. It's been a rejuvenation of a season. Fastball outside corner, it's 0-2. And so as a catcher, Jorge Posada says what to his pitcher?
Let's let it go. You saw how effective you could be last start with your fastball. First two pitches, fastball. Watch him dominate.
And on the third, slider tails away. It's 1-2.
Oh, every now and then, he's no different than any other pitcher. When you're having some failures early on in the season, you try and make new things up. You try and cut the ball. You try and sink the ball do things that aren't really your strong points. And he fell into that rut.
There's the splitter. It's now 2 balls and 2 strikes, with Alex Gonzalez on deck and Dave Martinez to follow. Yankees begin the night sitting pretty in the American League East with an 8-game lead over the Red Sox, 9 over the Blue Jays. Fisted into short left field, and there's David Justice. So we're underway, and now Alex Gonzalez steps in. Gonzalez at .257 with a dozen home runs and 58 runs batted in. So the Yankees now, they're in magic number territory, 13. While the Blue Jays fighting for their wild card life. Should be an easy play. And it is.
Roger Clemens threw 125 pitches his last outing. All of a sudden, the Toronto Blue Jays coming out, swinging at the first pitch they see, like we talked about. But still, I'd like to see them try and work Roger Clemens a little bit, get his pitch count up, because Roger has a tendency, after a lot of pitches like that, to come out a little sluggish. But great start for Clem so far.
2 out, nobody on. There's Cito Gaston, the hitting instructor for the Toronto Blue Jays, of course, their former manager. And now the much-traveled Dave Martinez, 293 with 5 home runs, 38 runs batted in. Dave began the year in Tampa Bay. He's got an 11-year-old son, and as many different teams as Martinez has played on. He says his son has the best paraphernalia collection in America.
Jerseys of all colors.
And all countries.
Shapes and sizes.
1 ball, no strikes to Martinez, who has really done an outstanding job since coming over to Toronto.
He's just such a professional player in the field, but at the plate, always going to put an at-bat on you. Work the count when he needs to, pull the ball when there's a runner on first, get a bunt down, do whatever it takes to get to the big guns, Delgado, Fulmer, and Bautista.
As a Blue Jay, he's hitting .348. And when you think of Dave Martinez, rarely do you think of him batting third.
Well, when he's swinging the bat this well, on-base percentage is up.
In the dirt. And so Martinez is in right, and Delgado is on deck. We're just underway at Yankee Stadium. The Oakland A's lost their ball game today to the Minnesota Twins. And so that's good news for the Blue Jays. As you take a look at Carlos Delgado on deck.
What a year. People were wondering what kind of effect Sean Green leaving would have on Carlos, but obviously none at all.
Now the 3-1. So a 2-out walk to Martinez. Clemens on the year came into the game with 165 strikeouts and 75 walks. So roughly a 2-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio. And now Delgado at .356, 39 home runs, 129 runs batted in. You know, there hasn't been a Triple Crown winner in the American League since Carl Yastrzemski in 1967, 33 years. And while Delgado is not likely to win the Triple Crown this year, he's about as close as you can get.
Yeah, it's just too hard nowadays. Got some people throwing just some ridiculous numbers offensively up.
Delgado swings and misses at a 94-mile-an-hour heater, with Brad Fulmer on deck.
I haven't caught Roger in 95 with the Boston Red Sox. Surprising thing about him, you know he throws hard, but it's how quick the ball jumps on you. The ball gets to a certain plane and then accelerates through the strike zone. And even as a catcher, you catch yourself sometimes being late on the fastball. The ball has that sneaky, deceptive velocity to it at the very end, which makes it that much harder to hit.
No balls and a strike and 2 outs. And when you prepare with Roger for a ball game, to what extent does the catcher take over, or to what extent does Roger call his own game?
Well, you try and work with him. Obviously, Jorge Posada's going to go with the game plan that Roger always sits you down and says, look, this is what I want to do, and he always ends it, obviously, with this is how I want to strike the guy out. This is, if I want to put him away, we're going to this pitch. But obviously, Jorge has done a good job this year of knowing how to get to the pitcher's other pitches when the forkball, let's say, isn't working for Roger. Going back to the fastball and maybe throwing the slider instead.
Delgado, 1 ball and 2 strikes. In talking to both Billy Connors, the pitching coach, of course, Mel Stottlemyre has taken a leave of absence to fight the bone marrow cancer. He'll not return to the team this year. Billy told him when Roger came to visit him in Tampa, just rear back and throw your country hardball again. Stop being too cute. The 1-2. The splitter gets him, and the inning is over. No runs, no hits, a walk, and a man left. It'll be Knobloch, Jeter, and O'Neill when the Yankees hit in the bottom of the first. Well, the Yankees' magic number is 13. Joe Torre's been down this road before, and he says he's still not quite ready to fine-tune for the postseason, although he does have the luxury of giving Bernie Williams another night off with a pulled calf muscle. Here's Torre's starting lineup. It's a familiar set. Knobloch, Jeter, and O'Neill, the top third. Tino Martinez, the cleanup hitter, followed by David Justice and Jose Canseco, whose bat speed seems to have picked up another notch or two since coming to New York. Posada, Brocious, and Clay Bellinger in center field.
Well, coming from Tampa Bay to New York, I tell you, that'll increase anybody's bat speed. Getting right into the pennant race, talking with him earlier today. Just back to having fun, playing baseball again. His locker right next to Roger Clemens. They're good friends, and I tell you what, he's having a blast.
Esteban Loaiza is pitching for the Blue Jays. The 28-year-old right-hander making his 28th start of the season. And Loaiza has been outstanding since coming over to Toronto. The record is 4-4, but his last outing, he was lights out.
Well, he was, and you talk about good old country hardball. Loaiza was throwing his fastball and variating grips, getting that sinker, and then putting guys away with the fastball. Threw about 85% fastballs his last outing, and look for him to do the same today.
And he'll be facing Knobloch, Jeter, and O'Neill. And Chuck Knobloch at 279. But Knobloch's on-base percentage is .355, and even that doesn't tell the story. Knobloch will wear opposing pitchers out, fouling one ball off after another. Swings and misses, it's 0-1, 92 miles an hour for Loaiza.
Yeah, he definitely has some deception, a little sling action to the fastball. Likes to climb the ladder with it, throw an outstanding changeup off of that as well. Just one of those enigmas. Can't seem to put together consistent starts year in and year out.
And it hit him.
He can do that a lot, too, Chuck Knobloch, get hit by pitches.
Well, when the Yankees are right, Knobloch and Jeter get on base a lot.
Well, we talked about the two-seam fastball. Watch this ball. Darren Fletcher setting up in, rides up and in. Knobloch getting out of the way, takes it right. Look at Chuck Knobloch, little body armor. Go get him.
And now Derek Jeter is the hitter. There's Knobloch with 13 stolen bases. Jeter at 3 1/4, but his on-base percentage is .405. For Derek, this has been an off season.
Not off season, I don't know, but all I know about Derek Jeter, he's one of the best two-strike hitters in the game. Rarely gives an at-bat away, knows how to put it in play.
Bunts it up the third base line and foul. O'Neill on deck. Defensively for the Blue Jays, and they are somewhat suspect. Batista at third, Delgado at first. Gonzalez and Morandini up the middle. The outfield of Stewart, Cruz, and Martinez. Darren Fletcher also somewhat suspect defensively. And here comes the 0-1 to Derek Jeter with O'Neill on deck. Talking to Willie Randolph before the game, Mike. And this is a guy who's been around the Yankees now for pretty near a quarter century and has seen all the great teams. And here he is, the third base coach. And he was saying that this team, as much as any Yankee team has that he's been around, that goes back to the great teams in the late 70s, early 80s, is such a veteran bunch that they somehow seem to know when August turns to September and how to ratchet it up yet another notch without dogging it necessarily, but they have the ability to go into that next level come September and then on into October.
Well, when you put together World Series like they have lately, you give them the benefit of the doubt. But they know what they we talked about it in the opening. Each player knows their role. They know exactly what they need to do. You saw Derek Jeter try and get a bunt down to move the runner along to get to Paul O'Neill. Paul O'Neill doesn't get the job done. Then you go to David Justice or Tino Martinez. You know, those people know, all right, if you don't get it done, I will, but I'll move the runner along, give myself up for you.
Fletcher does a nice job of digging it down to the dirt. It's 2 balls and 2 strikes.
It's almost like they get themselves to a certain point, and then they're fine-tuning their team to get to the postseason. And I tell you, it's not real fun playing them when they're in that fine-tuning mode.
I saw them up in Boston this past weekend, the Yankees. And you almost got the sense it was men against boys. And here comes the 2-2. And Jeter does what Knobloch does. He doesn't like a pitch, he'll foul it off, and he'll just wear the opposing pitcher down.
Ball was in the zone, still trying to put it. You saw he was trying to shoot that ball to the right side, waiting as long as he possibly can to hit the ball the other way. Hands back, wait, and just a little flick, a little poke check, trying to drive it to the right side. Always staying inside the ball with 2 strikes.
In the hole and into left field for a base hit. So the table setters have done their job. Knobloch was hit by a pitch, and Jeter with the single into left field.
Well, you're trying to shoot it the other way, but you speed a guy's bat up with a breaking ball that he leaves middle in, and Derek Jeter says, fine, I'm just going to pull this ball in the hole. His thought process allows him to stay back and pull that ball in the hole.
Paul
instead of
O'Neill
getting out in front.
Is the hitter now. And O'Neill with Jeter at first base and Knobloch at second. Paul at 295, 18 home runs, 96 runs batted in, has been playing with a hip pointer now for the past 3 weeks. But you're not going to get him out of the lineup.
And you're not going to hear about it either. A guy that will not talk about aches, pains, problems. He's here to play baseball.
Joe Torre sat him out the other day on Sunday just to give him a day off to catch a breath. The quiet Yankee, except when he kind of explodes upon himself in the locker room and in the dugout. Now he's an enigma. In the National League, in his 6, 7, 8 years in Cincinnati, never hit over 300. He's hit under 300 only once as a member of the Yankees at 295 this year.
Oh, I think maturity has something to do with it, even though you see Paul throw his helmet and smash a cooler every now and then. Maturity as far as a hitter coming along, about backing the ball up into the zone and using the entire park. Just an incessant work habit, driving balls off the tee, extra batting practice, almost to a fault.
And in his spare time, he watches the video.
Big video hound.
2 balls and a strike. So Esteban Loaiza has already dug himself a hole. Darren Fletcher flashing the sign with Tino Martinez on deck. And the count pulls even at 2-2. So Loaiza mixing speeds early. Paul O'Neill this year, when runners are aboard, is delivered.
That's picking them up. Put them out there and picking them up.
Knobloch at second, Jeter on first, nobody out. Three balls and 2 strikes. There's Tino Martinez on deck, and Tino has been picking it up as the season is worn on. Always talking about trading him, wearing out his welcome in New York, but all Tino has done, when it's counted most, is deliver.
And he hits a grand slam in the World Series, and everything's okay again.
3-2, runners go. And O'Neill fouls it back. It's one thing about every one of these Yankee hitters, when they're in a groove, they will make the opposing pitcher work.
Well, the difference between the Yankees early in the year and the Yankees now, early in the year, they were up there flailing from the word go, swinging at anything close to the plate. Now you see them putting their professional at-bats. Again, another guy waiting to see the ball the entire way, fastball away, flicking it, staying behind the ball, trying to hit it the other way. They're working the count now, making the pitcher work a little bit. Back to the Yankees that they were last year, drawing the walks, making the starting pitchers get out early.
Once again, the 3-2. Once again, the runners go. Slapped into left field. It's going to be caught by Shannon Stewart. And Chuck Knobloch is doubled up at second base. Knobloch never even made an effort to go back to second. He was standing at third, and when the ball was caught by Stewart, he was a dead duck.
Yeah, he had absolutely no chance. Going on the movement, seeing the ball going towards the plate, running with a 3-2 count. Line drive to left field, Shannon Stewart. There goes Chuck. Ball still in the air, reading Willie Randolph. Get back, get back. By this time, he's rounding third. Easy double play for the Blue Jays.
And so now Tino Martinez is the hitter. And Tino with a high fly ball to deep right. It is back, and it is gone.
Another guy fine-tuning himself for the playoffs.
You know, you got the sense that the Blue Jays were going to get out of the inning after the double play, but one pitch later, Martinez parks it into right field.
Belt high fastball. Tino sitting dead red first pitch, hammers it into right, 2-run homer. And all of a sudden, oh, you thought we were out of the inning? Well, let's throw a 2-spot on you.
And now David Justice. Esteban Loaiza either shaking off Darren Fletcher or shaking himself off in disgust.
Well, you just cannot let your guard down regardless of the situation against the Yankees.
And so the Yankees with an early 2-0 lead, and Justice swings through a sinker. Justice, as a Yankee, in 61 games, has 16 home runs, 49 RBIs, and is batting .327. Altogether on the year, he's at .294.
And oh, by the way, the Yankees are 40-20 since he's come over. Talk about a guy that threw a spark in there. David Justice, a healthy Roger Clemens, El Duque pitching well. Turned the corner right around that start that Roger Clemens had in Tampa Bay around the 2nd of July.
And Tino, he's been ratcheting it up another notch here in the middle of September in the 2-1. Justice, base hit into right. Talking to Joe Torre before the game. Asked him about Justice. Did he think he was this good? He said, yeah, I always admired him as an opposing player. But what he provides, the intangibles in the locker room, doesn't play all that much defense, but when he does, he said he's a very smart player.
Again, just adding another professional player to the stable.
And now here's Jose Canseco at .265. 15 home runs, 48 RBIs. The one statistic about Jose as you look at his numbers this year, you think of him as a big power hitter, an all-or-nothing proposition. His on-base percentage is .391.
Oh, he's got a great eye. Very surprising for a guy that you see take some hellacious hacks one swing and then spitting on a pitch the next. But he has a great idea of the strike zone. stands right on top of it. It's kind of hard not to.
He's got that shining armor. And he drills it to left field, but it is playable. For Shannon Stewart, the inning is over. And so Tino Martinez, with his 14th home run of the season, is giving the Yankees a leg up. So Tino Martinez gives the Yankees an early 2-0 lead with a 2-out, 2-run home run off Esteban Loaiza, and so Roger Clemens has been staked to an early lead. And the way Clemens has been pitching the second half of the season, 2 is just about enough.
Well, I'd like to, let's see if the Blue Jays come out, start taking a few more pitches, working the count a little bit. First inning jumping on, like we talked about, the first straight thing you see.
Brad Fulmer with 31 home runs and 98 RBIs. Went to spring with the Montreal Expos. He has doubled his power supply, nearly triple.
Been a huge surprise for the Blue Jays coming over. Got off to a good start and just continued. Talk about protection for Delgado. Between he and Batista, lefty, righty, it doesn't matter. You have someone that's throwing up some numbers behind Delgado.
Part of that three-way trade that sent Lee Stevens from Texas to Montreal and David Segui from Toronto to Texas. And manager Jim Fregosi more than pleasantly surprised with the Brad Fulmer offensive output this year. Here's a 2-1. Fisted to first, and an easy play for Tino. General Manager Gord Ash watching his Toronto Blue Jays, who begin the night. There's Gord right in the center of the screen. Of course, the Blue Jays recently sold to a cable television concern up in Canada, and there's a sense that there will be a lot more money for their payroll next year.
Exactly. They really took it as a great blessing, and it is, because the guy is going to make the financial commitment to get some more star players in there, starting with the pitching staff.
Tony Batista is the hitter. If somebody would have told you 3-4 years ago that Tony Batista would have 38 home runs and 104 RBIs, what would you have said?
The Oakland A's wouldn't have traded him. I tell you, Tony Batista, a scrawny little kid coming up. Then he goes to this stance. Next thing you know, puts on some weight, develops, finds out what the weight room is, and now monster years back to back.
The 0-2 just did get out of the way. Came up with the A's in '96, spent '97 at AAA Edmonton. A couple of years in Arizona, and this is second year in Toronto.
0-2, guy with 30-something home runs, make him move his feet.
Look at the play by Brocious. He keeps it in the infield. He keeps it from being a double. So an infield hit with 1 out for Tony Batista. That's the first hit of the ball game for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Going back to that brushback pitch, that was just a purpose pitch by Roger Clemens going inside. Don't get too comfortable because I'm around the strike zone. Tony Batista doing a great job of sticking his face in there, putting a good swing on a ball.
And so with 1 out and 1 on, Darren Fletcher is now the hitter. Fletcher having another productive offensive season. 17 home runs, 47 RBIs, and this would appear to be a double play ball. And it is. 4-6-3, and the inning is over. No runs a hit and nobody left. Posada, Brocious, and Bellinger to hit for the Yankees in the bottom of the second. Posada, Brocious, and Bellinger to hit for the Yankees in the bottom half of the second inning against the Toronto Blue Jays, who begin the night 3 games behind the Cleveland Indians in the race for the wild card. And manager Jim Fregosi and the Blue Jays all have a sense about their season, and it will really be determined by next Thursday. They've got a game beside tonight, 1 more with the Yankees tomorrow. Then they go to Chicago to face the White Sox Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, they'll host the Yankees again. If they can get that through that schedule, the next 7 games after tonight, 4-3, 5-2, they think they still have a light. But if they can't, with Cleveland and Boston in front of them and Oakland and Seattle having it.
Right. It's just this late in the year, it's awfully tough to start jumping 2, 3, 4 teams.
Looking at Joey Hamilton and Todd Green. There's Jorge Posada. No balls and 2 strikes to the switch hitting catcher. But you've got the Red Sox and the Indians. They're going at it. They've got 7 more games with each other. Posada twirls one to right center field and cutting across Jose Cruz. Had the angle on that line drive. Take a look now at the wild card standings in the American League. Now keep in mind that not this weekend, but next weekend, the Athletics and Mariners have a big series.
Big 4-game series in Seattle, yes.
And so Seattle may be inserted into this wild card race before all is said and done. And you've got the Indians and the Red Sox with 7 more games against one another. So the Blue Jays are still alive and well, but they've got to get busy here in the next 7 games. Scott Brocious, the hitter. Brocious is another one who's been able to ratchet up his game in the final month of the season.
With some big hits, big home runs late in the game. Always solid on defense. Average is down, but the power numbers and RBIs, like you said, moving up.
Boy, he just stabbed the Red Sox and their faithful in the heart on Saturday with that 3-run home run late in the ball game, beating Pedro. And what an at-bat that was.
That was an outstanding at-bat.
Kept fouling them off, and then outguessed Pedro on a changeup and drilled it over the Green Monster, and the Yankees beat the Red Sox and may have finished their season. No balls and 2 strikes, but the Red Sox still with a glimmer of hope because they're face-to-face with the Indians this weekend.
Everybody's got a shot still. This thing isn't going to be decided till last week.
But you know, you take a look at the American League wild card race, and the only team at the moment that's been playing on the upswing, the Oakland A's.
Starting to put it together, and they're going through a stretch where they're playing the 2nd division teams. The Mariners, they sweep the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. They go back out to Tampa. So they know they have their work cut out for them, but the thing is they go from all the way out to Tampa Bay, then come back and play Seattle. That'll be an interesting trip.
Even though the A's lost today 7-6, they're the only team that really has been playing with any sort of consistency of late. Cleveland continues to be up and down. Didn't get the performance they would have liked last night out of Findlay. Blue Jays are up and down. Red Sox are up and down. Here's the 1-2. 2 now to Scott Brocious with Clay Bellinger on that.
Well, the A's got back-to-back complete games. Pitching. Jason Isringhausen with a save last night.
And there's Bellinger, who has been a very surprising influence on the Yankees this year. As Brocious goes down swinging, that's the first strikeout of the ball game for Esteban Loaiza. Now there's 2 out.
Pounded him in with 2 sinking fastballs and then throw a 4-seamer that ladders Scott Brocious up and away. Good sequencing by Darren Fletcher. Get him conscious in, throw it away.
So Loaiza with 2 out and nobody on, and here's Clay Bellinger. While hitting only .224, Bellinger in center field tonight, again replacing Bernie Williams. And Bellinger could play the infield. He's no spring chicken. He's 30 years old. Spent a fair amount of time in the minor leagues. And so he can play practically anywhere.
But again, getting a chance to do something on a pennant contending team and putting some numbers up. Throwing guys out there in center field while Bernie Williams has been down. Bellinger, Glenn Allen Hill been playing some outfield. Even Jose Canseco moving people around.
Bellinger will be on the Yankees 25-man roster in the postseason. The only question about who will be on that 25-man roster, talking to Brian Cashman before the game tonight, will be either Luis Polonia or Ryan Thompson as the 25th man, but they're inclined to go with Polonia because he has postseason experience, runs a little bit better. Backhanded by Gonzalez. Bellinger is retired. Yankees in order. So it'll be Jose Cruz Jr., Mickey Morandini, and Shannon Stewart to hit when we come back. Roger Clemens went on the disabled list back on the 15th of June. His record was 4-6, and he had an ERA of 4 3/4. Since coming back from the disabled list, he's 8-0 with an ERA of 2 1/4. Talked to Joe Torre before the game about the trip on to the disabled list and what real good work it did for Roger Clemens.
2 weeks on the disabled list isn't necessarily a bad thing, because sometimes it gives you a chance in this game to evaluate what you were, what you are, and where you want to go. And when he came off that disabled list, and I know the boss may have had something to do with it. The boss was sort of chiding him a little bit in Florida, you know, challenging him, which is what George Steinbrenner likes to do. And he came out of the chute pretty aggressive, and we've seen that guy every time out.
8-0 since coming back from the disabled list, and Roger Clemens, who threw 95 miles an hour in the 8th inning last Friday night in Boston, picking up where he left off tonight.
You know, just not only a physical break when you go on a disabled list, a little bit of a mental break. You can just stop thinking, shut all the thought process down, get back to the mechanics, which he did. Basically, I think he found his legs, learned to sit on that back leg and drive off it again, getting back to that power.
In his last 3 starts, he has been more than overpowering.
That's negative.
Averaging about a strikeout an inning. Nowhere near the 95-mile-an-hour fastball, Jose Cruz had 2 balls and 2 strikes. This is as good a stretch that Roger Clemens has had since coming to the Yankees. And both Joe Torre and Billy Connors saying before the game that Roger thought perhaps it was time to finesse it a little bit more, become more of the so-called pitcher. And Billy Connors said, no, you're still a country hardball pitcher until such time as you can't do it anymore. And then you adjust. Here's the 2-2. Just missing.
That's one of the things I like about spring training. When pitchers and interleague play, pitchers have to go and hit and see how difficult it is to square that round ball on a round bat. And understand that good hitters make an out 7 out of 10 times, and, you know, get the thought process of being more aggressive.
That's strikeout number 2 for Roger Clemens. As Cruz is caught looking.
Talk about the deceptive acceleration on Roger Clemens' fastball. Watch his ball take off. Jorge Posada with a great frame. Look at him receive that ball on the outside corner. No chance to pull the trigger.
On the fastball that tailed away.
And that ball's by him.
Now the hitter is Mickey Morandini. Morandini at 328 since coming over to the Blue Jays. And with Homer Bush gone for the season, having had arthroscopic surgery on his hip, Morandini has been a steadying influence in the Blue Jay infield. And he's hit a lot more than they thought he might. Manager Jim Fregosi, knowing that a week from tonight, he'll have a much better idea of, as he lines it foul right behind the third base dugout. And somebody actually caught that screaming meeting. Fregosi knows a week from tonight whether or not his team really is going to be in the wild card hunt heading into the final week or not. 4 more games with the Yankees after tonight, and 3 with the White Sox. What a job Fregosi has done.
Putting some veteran pieces into the mix, trying to find a number 2 behind David Wells.
And they brought Dave Stewart down from the front office.
The front office, exactly.
Through the middle and into center field for a base hit. That's the second hit of the game for the Blue Jays, the one-out single by Mickey Morandini. There's Dave Stewart. John Frascatore last week
exactly.
made the mistake of questioning his pitching coach.
Not a good idea when you have the temperament of Dave Stewart, a competitor both on and off the field, wants nothing but the best for his staff, and Frascatore, I guess, had his own ideas about what he needed to do, and Dave Stewart said, well, it's not getting done your way.
Questioning Dave Stewart's generally not a good idea.
Wasn't a good idea when he had a ball in his hand either.
Now here's Shannon Stewart with Morandini at first base. Shannon fly to left field in his first at-bat. Bloop to shortstop. But nobody's hit the ball hard against Roger yet.
Had some decent swings. That was a good fastball with a little action. Ran it in on Shannon's hands, exploded the bat.
And now Alex Gonzalez, who bounced to second base in his first at-bat. Skied to first base. Easy play for Tino Martinez. No runs and a hit. It'll be the top of the order for the Yankees in the bottom half of the third when we come back to the Bronx. As we head now to the bottom half of the third inning, it'll be the top of the order for the Yankees. Knobloch, Jeter, and O'Neill. Knobloch hit by a pitch in his first at-bat. The one thing when you talk to Joe Torre about Chuck Knobloch, and he defends him to the hilt, is that since coming to the Yankees, all they have done in his 2 seasons in New York is win the World Series both years.
Sorry about that.
So he will defend Chuck and his throwing problems. Of course, Chuck has had elbow problems all year, and he drills one to deep left center field. It is way back, and it's one hop to the wall. Knobloch will hold at second base with a leadoff double here in the bottom half of the third inning. And again, going back to what Joe Torre said, Chuck Knobloch, you take him as the complete package.
Well, the Toronto defense has Chuck Knobloch shaded slightly opposite, meaning towards the right side, thinking he's going to hit the ball that way. But when you hang a breaking ball, it allows Chuck to get the head out. And there's nobody that's going to get to this ball, kind of pitching against your defense, leaving a breaking ball middle in. And Chuck hammered that ball, leadoff double. Again, these guys just keep attacking. Now you watch Derek Jeter. Unselfish, see if he moves the guy over.
You may have noticed Jose Cruz with the bare hand play against the wall. If he doesn't make that play barehanded, it's a triple. Derek Jeter is now the hitter. And Jeter drills one to left field. But Shannon Stewart makes the play, and going to third base is Chuck Knobloch.
Oh, what a heads-up play by Chuck Knobloch. Derek Jeter pulling this pitch. Chuck Knobloch immediately breaking back towards the bag. Gets himself in position. Shannon Stewart falls down. Chuck Knobloch continues on to third. Watch Stewart make the catch. Knobloch is already in position to tag. Comes off the bag like he's going. Now Shannon Stewart falls. Easy play for Chuck Knobloch. Just pure hustle by Chuck Knobloch to get to third base. That is how you get by and win some ball games.
Now, you remember back in the first inning, Knobloch was doubled off when Paul O'Neill flied to left field.
Aggressive running in that situation as well.
But this time it pays off. The Blue Jays now with the infield in. They can ill afford to give up a third run with Roger Clemens pitching the way he is. And O'Neill better than a 300 hitter with runners in scoring position. Gets a little more help with the infield in. Gets him out of the way. 2 balls and no strikes to Paul O'Neill.
Go back to that play, Charlie. You know the Yankees are playing well when you do something wrong and it still comes out right for you. You know, Derek Jeter, usually a guy that's going to move the runner along, push bunt, get him over somehow, pulls the ball. Shouldn't have gotten over, slipped by Stewart, and he ends up on third.
Line drive base hit. And so the Yankees with a 3-0 lead. That was going to be a base hit whether or not the infield was in. For O'Neill, his 97th run batted into the season.
Just a professional hitter, using the big part of the park, staying on that pitch away, trying to get him to roll over with Paul O'Neill. He's got such great hands. Swings a rather big bat, big-barreled bat.
Cleveland with a 2-0 lead over the Red Sox. And now here's Tino, who hit a home run into the right field bleachers in his first at-bat. His 14th of the season. His 2 RBIs gave him 86. Deep to right. He just got under it. It was off the end of the bat. Now let's go to Bill Pito for our first update of the night. Bill?
All right, Charlie, Azima takes us to the Jake, where Russell Branyan loves things. He's now, after this home run, got 15 home runs on the year. 13 have come at home. He's got 15 home runs in just 136 at-bats this year. And the Indians on the 2-run shot lead, Boston 2s it.
Well, that's why everybody wanted a piece of Russell Branyan when they were talking trade with the Cleveland Indians.
Boy, they got just keep bringing up big studs on that Indians team. Sexton, Branyan, Sean Casey.
And now Justice, the hitter, the former Indian, takes a strike. And the one trade that turned the Indians around, 2 trades actually turned the Indians around this year. And one of them was trading David Justice to New York. Why is that, you say? Well, it freed up $7 million in payroll for the Indians. Then they could go out and trade Richie Sexton up to the Brewers and get Beret, Woodard, and Wickman. And they had much more maneuverability in making the late season deals. And they could go out and get Will Cordero, who is now gone for the season with a broken pinky. And so the quote-unquote unloading of David Justice opened the door for the Indians to get back into the wild card race, and the Yankees were more than happy to get Justice. Look at what they have done since he has arrived. The Yankees begin the night at 83 and 59. Since coming to the Yankees, Justice hitting .327 with 16 home runs, 49 runs batted in 61 games.
Are getting squeezed a little bit. Randy Marsh home plate and wondering why. Certain situation here, outside corner. Pretty much centers Darren Fletcher on the outside corner. Called the ball. David Justice waiting around to see if he has to swing. Well, okay, I'll go to first.
Brings up Jose Canseco. In his 26 games as a Yankee, 6 home runs and 18 runs batted in.
Had a big night last night, 3 for 3.
Talked to Jose before the game. He's batting 6th and 7th with the Yankees.
Yeah, who would have thought that?
So when was the last time he bat 6th or 7th? About 1985 in Oakland. He doesn't mind. He's going to the postseason. He knows it. And the 0-1. Skies it to short left center field, and that's Jose Cruz. The inning is over. A run, 2 hits, and a walk. And the Yankees 3-0 after 3. Well, Roger Clemens, who has re-upped with the Yankees for 3 more years, for about $12 million or thereabouts.
Right around your neck of the woods, huh?
But you know, it got me to thinking the other day. Here are the Yankees now trying to work out a new cable television contract locally in New York with Madison Square Garden Cable. You hear what they asked MSG for the next 10 years? $1.4 billion. $1,400,000,000.
Oh, my goodness.
And you have other teams around the American and National Leagues who get television revenues. Look at this fellow, who basically get enough to pay for utility infielder. Now here's Dave Martinez, who'll be followed by Carlos Delgado and Brad Fulmer. Martinez grew up in Brooklyn. Takes a ball strike. And so the Blue Jays are hoping to get into the high-rent district with the sale of their team to the cable group up in Canada.
We just go back to the days when the Sky Dome opened and 50,000 there every single night.
And there's Gordash, the general manager of the Blue Jays.
He wants to have some fun this offseason.
I think he will. Again, when you have a television concern that owns you, basically what you're doing, you're buying cast members for a long-running television show.
Yeah, but those cast members go out and they're in the big dance year in and year out.
Then it's the more successful the television show. Here's the 2-1. 3 balls and a strike to Martinez. Roger has retired the leadoff hitter in each of the first 3 innings, with Carlos Delgado on deck and Brad Fulmer to follow. Here's the 3-1. So the count is full to Dave Martinez. One of the things about the Yankees, you know, these are not your dad's Bronx Bombers. They're getting by on pitching. In their last 13 games, their starters have a record of 9-1 and an ERA of 2.26.
And they're getting deep into the games.
Through the middle, and it's blocked by Clemens. He has time to throw out Martinez.
Blocked by which part of Roger Clemens will be interesting to see. It looked like it might have got him on the shin, but no one hopping out there to check on the big horse. Old 2-seam fastball running away down in the zone. Got him in the glove. Big old chamois.
Well, with 1 out, nobody on, that'll bring up Carlos Delgado. Struck out in his first at-bat. Delgado among the top 4 in average, home runs, and RBIs. Began the night second in the American League to Nomar Garcia-Parra in batting average. Third in home runs with 39. Frank Thomas has 42. Troy Gloss has 41. And fourth in runs batted in. Frank Thomas leads with 139. Edgar Martinez 134. Mike Sweeney of Kansas City 133. And Delgado with 129.
Well, to top it off, has 109 walks coming into tonight's game. Strikeouts way down this year. Just great idea of the strike zone. Working the count a little bit more. Could always expect Carlos Delgado to chase a pitch in the dirt when you needed to. He's expanding the strike zone, trying to drive in some runs.
The last 3 Triple Crown winners.
Jeez.
And at the moment, Delgado, who loops a base hit into short right field, has better numbers than the last 3 Triple Crown winners. Now Bill Peto's got an update. What you got, Bill?
All right, Charlie, here we go back to Cleveland for the Indians and the Red Sox. Zima taking us to the Jake for the base hit here by Omar Vizquel. Kenny Lofton got that great speed. Throw is cut off. Indians in control, leading at 3-0 in the top of the third.
Omar Vizquel knocking in Kenny Lofton. And the Indians with a 3-0 lead. Of course, the Indians, how they do tonight has a big impact on how the Blue Jays do. Delgado at first base with 1 out. With the 3rd hit of the night for Toronto, and Brad Fulmer, who fouls it back. So Carlos Delgado at first base. The thing that's most astonishing about Delgado, beside the prodigious batting average, home runs, RBIs, his on-base percentage is about .480. So he's on base half the time.
Got 2 guys at 100 RBIs right behind him. One of the reasons why.
Brad Fulmer fouls it back, and quickly he's in a 2-strike predicament with Tony Batista on deck. We said at the top of the broadcast that at the beginning of the year, you figured the Blue Jays had all those young arms, and that was going to carry their season. Didn't work out that way this year.
No, it hasn't. Some of the young guys haven't stepped up to the challenge, to the task. Now you have Steve Traxel. Frank Castillo has done a great job this year.
Here's the 0-2.
Joey Hamilton has been hurt for most of the season. That didn't help any, but Boomer Wells, the one constant, going to get his 20th win one of these starts. You have a closer, and Billy Koch down in the pen throws over 100 miles an hour. So you have the makings of something really nice here to let Gordash tinker a little bit and fill in the spots.
Taylor made double play ball for Jeter to Martinez, and the inning is over. No runs, a hit, nobody left. After 3.5, it's 3-0 Yankees. Charlie Steiner and Mike Macfarlane from Yankee Stadium. We head to the bottom half of the 4th inning as we take a look at El Duque and the Yankee bench. And that's Jose Vizcaino munching on some sunflower seeds. Yankees and the Indians this Friday night, beginning at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, special Friday night broadcast. Or some of you will see the Red Sox and the Tigers. In the Yankee game, by the way, David Cone is coming back from that separated left shoulder. Dave Burba will go for the try. And for the Yankees here in the bottom half of the 4th, it'll be Jorge Posada, Scott Brocious, and Clay Bellinger. Back on Memorial Day, when the Yankees were a mere 8 games over 500, their bench consisted of the following. And here's the first pitch to Posada. And first ball swinging, rather uncharacteristic. And an easy hop for Morandini. There's one gone. On Memorial Day, the Yankees bench consisted of Jim Leyritz, Wilson Delgado, Lance Johnson, Clay Bellinger, and Chris Turner.
Wow.
Leyritz, Delgado, and Johnson are all long gone. In the postseason, the Yankee bench is more than likely going to consist of Glenn Allen Hill, Luis Sojo, Jose Vizcaino, Luis Polonia, Canseco, Glenn Allen Hill, or Justice in some
capacity.
Yeah. So the Yankees, who realized they had a weakness, there's Glenn Allen, had a weakness in the middle of the season with their bench, and an easy comeback. Went out and addressed their needs. Of course, they added about $25 million to their payroll.
But MSG will take care of that.
And so the Yankees were able to do it. They were able to address their needs. They were able to add a contract of a Jose Canseco, of a Glenn Allen Hill, of a Dave Justice.
Oh, it's just got to be nice to have a hole, and knowing by any means necessary you can go and fill that hole.
Mm-hmm. So the Yankees have been able to do that. And now Clay Bellinger is the hitter. Talking to one of the Yankee scouts earlier in the season, said, our crying need is to get some young guys who can play for $300,000 or $400,000 a year. Bellinger skies it into short left field, and that's Shannon Stewart. So a 1-2-3 inning for Esteban Loaiza. And through 4, the Yankees lead by 3.
Bill Pito back in the studio last year in Game 5 against the Indians. Troy O'Leary of Boston had 2 home runs and 7 RBIs. Tonight, with a team down 3-0 in the 3rd. Fair ball. Barely fair with 2 outs in the 3rd. In comes Boston's first run, and they're within 2 at 3-1, playing the bottom of the 3rd.
All right, Bill, so Troy O'Leary comes up big for the Post Sox. June of last year, the Toronto Blue Jays sent situational left-hander Dan Plesac to the Arizona Diamondbacks for John Frascatore and Tony Batista. Batista steps into the batter's box now, and Tony with a base hit in his first at-bat. And on the first swing of the top half of the 5th inning, Paul O'Neill makes the catch. Batista with 38 home runs this year. He had 26 last year, 5 the year before. And in his major league career, Batista coming into the year had a total of 59 home runs, but more than half as many this year. And on the first pitch, here's Darren Fletcher. They're making life easy on Clemens, and he certainly doesn't need any help.
Well, they're coming out hacking. Talk about Roger Clemens and the deception on his fastball, the acceleration, that giddy up the last 3 feet. 2 good fastball hitters, Darren Fletcher, Tony Batista. First pitch fastball, late on both of them.
So on 2 pitches, there's 2 out. It'll bring up Jose Cruz Jr. He's had good power numbers this year, but Jim Fregosi would like to see him work on his on-base percentage and improve his batting average. And quickly, Clemens is ahead. Here's the 0-1. 95 miles an hour.
Boy, he's picking it up a notch. You're starting to hear Posada's glove pop all the way up here. Roger gets in a groove. He kicks it into overdrive.
Slider misses away. It's 2-1. With Morandini on deck. Clemens cruising along. Has an ERA of less than 1 in his last 3 starts, and it's going down tonight.
Roger Clemens with that 125 pitch outing last game. Really responding well. Coming out with a good velocity, but again, the location has been the key tonight.
And this is 59th pitch. Popped up in foul territory. Posada near the dugout. Kick out. The Yankees, like many teams, have put up those protective railings in front of the dugout.
Anaheim Angels, very similar. Jorge Posada giving it a look on the inside of the Yankees bench on their fence. It has a little sign there that says fencing by Don Zimmer.
Well, you remember last year,
yes,
he was
that's right.
crushed by a foul tip. Swung on and missed strike 3. That's the 3rd strikeout for Clemens. A 1-2-3 inning for Roger. At the halfway mark, the Yankees are in cruise control. And while Chuck Knobloch continues to have his struggles with his throwing, as Joe Torre says, you have to take the complete package. We talked to Joe before the game.
Chuck Knobloch, the package is what helped us win 2 World Series in a row, and that's get on-base percentage, the ability to steal a base, and the ability to have Derek Jeter hit with a man at first base all the time. So he's been good, and hopefully, and he seems to be getting more comfortable all the time. He's had a couple of key hits for us lately. We need him at the top of the batting order.
And Knobloch, first ball swinging, fouls it behind the first base dugout. Chuck tonight hit by a pitch, a double, and a run scored. And so what Joe Torre is doing is essentially making Knobloch a 6 or 7 inning player, and they bring in Jose Vizcaíno as a defensive replacement late in the game.
have the luxury to do that. Vizcaino very solid on defense.
And here's the 0-1 to Knobloch. And inevitably, come October, when the weather gets nippy and you can see the vapor from your breath, there's Chuck Knobloch fouling off 6, 7, 8 pitches.
Pitch after pitch after pitch.
He is a pain.
And taking the balls, you know, he goes up there with a great idea of a certain area he's looking, and he doesn't come off that until it's 2 strikes. Then it's a battle of attrition trying to put the ball in play if it's a strike. And if not, just taking an approach to flick at it, foul the ball off.
And Knobloch with a base hit. He's 2 for 2, and he has been on base all 3 times tonight. He has led off 3 times, and he has gotten on base 3 times.
Well, just a fastball up out over the plate by Loaiza. Chuck Knobloch, we talked about it. Got the bat so loose in his hands, starts back, hands go back, just stays through the ball, drives it up the middle. Hardly a fly ball, tries to hit the ball on the ground hard. And there's Derek Jeter again with a runner on first.
So Knobloch's been aboard 3 times. Jeter with a base hit, a run scored, and a fly out tonight. And so the Yankees are getting production again from their first 2 hitters, and that's what they were struggling with early in the year.
Very much so.
And Jeter spent some time on the disabled list. So now he's rounding into form.
Haven't seen Knobloch attack the bases in this situation, possibly looking for him to steal. Create even more holes for Derek Jeter in a hitter's count now.
Yankee Stadium, the home office of the Fall Classic. And they're just getting geared up again. You just get a sense that the Yankees are just getting ready at their own pace. At the moment, they trail the White Sox for best record in the American League by 2.5 games. Joe Torre says his main concern is just win the division. Everything else will take care of itself. They'll only have 1 play, and that's at second base. Morandini goes to Gonzalez. Now let's go to Bill Pito with an update. What you got, Bill?
All right, Charlie, the White Sox cruising along in the Central. Tonight taking on the Tigers and the ageless one, Harold Baines here. Scoreless game, and that's going to go all the way to the wall. Frank Thomas comes around to score, and the White Sox at home now lead the Tigers by the score of 1-0 playing the top of the second.
Somehow, if you think the White Sox are just going to go fade away, guess again.
If they're not pitching well that night, offense picks them up. If they're not swinging the bats well, pitching shuts the other team down.
Here's Paul O'Neill. But come postseason, and it doesn't matter what the sport, football, basketball, hockey, defense wins games. And the question about the White Sox is, will their defense be enough to carry them through?
Well, it has this season, but in the postseason, in a shortened amount of games.
Drilled to left field. Shannon Stewart is right there.
Continuing that thought, in a shortened series, defense will kill you. They just don't have time to rebound from a defensive rut that you might get in.
And also, you're facing the top 3 pitchers. Runs are at a premium and more times than not in the postseason. And you simply cannot afford to give the other team an extra out, especially a team like the Yankees or the Indians, where you've got so much offensive firepower. And now Dave Stewart is coming on out.
Mark Guthrie has been in the pen throwing for a little bit.
This copyright telecast is presented by the authority of the Office of the Commissioner of Baseball, may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of the ball game may not be disseminated without express written consent. And go to MajorLeagueBaseball.com for the most complete baseball coverage on the internet. MajorLeagueBaseball.com. Home plate umpire Randy Marsh trying to put an end to the meeting on the mound, and mission accomplished. So Dave Stewart has said his piece to Esteban Loaiza. Now, remember, in his first meeting with Tino Martinez, Tino drilled a 2-run home run into the right field bleachers.
And had a pretty decent swing his second at-bat on a fastball in. Just jammed him a little bit, but it's almost pick your poison here between Tino and David Justice.
And a fastball inside and high. It's 1 ball and no strikes to Tino Martinez. There's the left-hander, Mark Guthrie. And here comes the 1-0. Inside and high. It's 2 balls and no strikes to Tino Martinez. Jeter at first base with 2 out. And Dave Stewart with that steely-eyed stare.
The Mike Singletary linebacker stare.
Fly ball into short left center field, and that's Shannon Stewart. No runs and a hit. We're playing this game with the haste of a New York minute.
ESPN2's Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by New Beck's Light. All beer, no compromise. Look for Beck's Light in a clear bottle wherever you buy Beck's. And by Sonic, America's drive-in.
This afternoon in the Bronx, it felt like late summer. It was warm and humid. But a cold front has moved through, and now it's beginning to feel like early fall, and the Yankees are playing like it. Mickey Morandini leading off for the Blue Jays in the top half of the 6th inning. And Roger Clemens quickly has 1 out.
He's really throwing strikes with everything. Fastball, forkball, that pitch, a slider. Tying Mickey Morandini up. Awfully hard to key on one thing, and that's when you... That is classic.
Yankee fans do have a sense of humor, don't they? He struck out 3 tonight, and he's walked 1.
But that's why you see so many of the Blue Jay hitters going up there swinging at that fastball, because when his forkball's on, it's nasty and unhittable.
In the 5th inning, Clemens threw only 8 pitches. And he has now thrown 62. So he's averaging barely 10 pitches per inning.
That's outstanding.
This coming off a 125-pitch performance last Friday night in Boston, where he was merely throwing 95 in the 8th inning.
A little adrenaline flowing, I'm sure, going back into Fenway time and time again.
But, you know, the interesting thing about Clemens is when he first got here last year in the trade for David Wells that involved the Homer Bush deal, Graham Lloyd, Clemens was not the Clemens of old at all here last year. Had 1 solid outing, and that was the final game of the World Series. Into right field. 2 out. But this year, really the second half of the season, since coming off the disabled list, are we seeing the Roger Clemens of old?
I most definitely would hope so. 2.2 ERA, dropping tonight. Being more aggressive, like Billy Connor was talking about with his fastball.
I sensed last year in watching this team an awful lot that Clemens was having a hard time getting adjusted to the place, to
Possibly.
the Yankees.
Very possibly.
And really it wasn't until he clinched that final game of the World Series did he finally feel like one of them.
Exactly right. That's a good point. I mean, these are your adversaries so long, you're born and bred in Boston. Maybe that had something to do with it. But again, I think there were some arm issues with Roger Clemens last year when he first came over, and just never really got into a situation on a consistent basis that he would go out there and throw a dominating performance, and, you know, possibly overshadowed by El Duque and Andy Pettit as well.
And those will be the 3 pitchers in the rotation in the postseason. And all 3 of them are pitching as well now as they have at any time this year.
And no coincidence that the Yankees have taken off.
El Duque struggled the early part of the year, as Clemens did. Two and two. So El Duque has been able to step it up a notch when the games have counted the most.
Is that good? Oh, my goodness.
Here's the 2-2. Strikeout number 4 for Roger Clemens. And the Rocket is shooting nothing but missiles at the Blue Jays tonight.
Card championship heats up in...
Here at Yankee Stadium, the Yankees with a 3-0 lead, and Roger Clemens has simply been outstanding. That's a cutie. Hey, Thursday night at 7:30 Eastern Time, 4:30 Pacific. Mississippi State and BYU. It all begins with college football tonight, presented by Gateway, right after Sports Center. So that's our college football Thursday night with Mike and the gang. Roger Clemens to this point has just been nasty. David Justice, first ball swinging, line drive right into the glove of Mickey Morandini. Esteban Loaiza hasn't been all bad either.
No,
He's given up
hasn't.
3 runs and 6 hits.
Early on, struggled early, 2-run homer, but has settled into a groove himself. And you know, the Blue Jays get a couple on and pop one, whole new ball game.
Tino Martinez with a 2-run homer in the first, and Paul O'Neill's RBI single in the third, providing the Yankees their 3 runs tonight. Canseco, who has flied to left and flied to center, pulled on an off-speed breaking ball. Jose enjoying himself in New York.
That's a third colored bat Jose has brought up there tonight.
For those of you keeping score at home.
He goes up. He has a bat rack like you can't believe. It's a rainbow. And he just goes up there, and whatever feels good goes up there to swing it. And honestly think he broke the first 2, but again, this one, different shade. He actually, when he was with the A's, swung a green bat.
Here comes the 1-1. And you can only imagine what might have been had he remained healthy over the years.
Oh, just incredible numbers. And to top it off, the back problems he had with Tampa Bay, and then came back that quick from it and still swing as aggressively. He just does not get cheated on anything.
Well, one of the things he has discovered, and he's dropped 10 pounds since coming to the Yankees, is that bigger isn't necessarily better. And so he is hoping in the off-season to drop to about 230 pounds, which he hasn't been in about 12 years.
That is just some buggy whip. He is. He's a leaner, feels a lot better, and of course, healthier. Look at the back foot, how close to the inside corner of the plate.
Now the 2-2.
There's tremendous bat speed.
Canseco, built like an outside linebacker, began the year weighing about 260. But it's all muscle. He is a massive human being. But he still thinks he can take off from that 260 about 30 pounds, and that's where he'd like to be next spring with the Yankees at about 230 pounds. Here's the 2-2. Just missing outside and low.
And Joe Torre's thrown him in the outfield, played left field, hasn't hurt him at all. Caught the balls hit to him, actually ran a couple down on the track.
3-2 with 1 out. To third base, and an easy play for Tony Batista. There's 2 gone. So Canseco's nothing for 3 tonight. They'll bring up Jorge Posada. A lot of questions about Posada at the beginning of the year after the Yankees traded or let Joe Girardi go off as a free agent to sign with his hometown Chicago Cubs. Could Posada handle the chores every day, day in, day out? Well, his .296 batting average with 25 home runs and 83 RBIs is only part of the answer.
Well, they always knew he could hit. What he has done is established himself as the leader behind the plate. You know, Joe Girardi was obviously a favorite among certain pitchers on the staff, but Jorge Posada has gone and taken that duty over.
Down the first baseline. Look at the play by Delgado, and Loaiza with a heads-up play covering at first base, and the inning is over. Nice play by both Delgado and Loaiza. Well, through 6, Delgado and the Blue Jays still in it, but they trail by 3. You know, when you think of Carlos Delgado, the one thing you don't necessarily think of is the glove, but what a spectacular play to end the bottom half of the 6th inning.
Well, what people have to realize here at Yankee Stadium, how sloped it is from the foul lines to foul territory. Great play of Delgado by the seat of his pants, literally, to make that play. Once you get on the foul lines, it slopes straight down towards the fans and the crowd right there.
So the field has a natural crown, and when you sit in one dugout, you can barely see the other dugout.
Or you're looking out into right field and you're seeing Paul O'Neill from the waist up.
He practically disappears. Dave Martinez to lead off for the Blue Jays in the top half of the 7th inning. To this point, Roger Clemens has tossed a 3-hitter. He has struck out 4 and walked 1. He has thrown just 70 pitches through 6 innings. Esteban Loaiza has pitched well for Toronto, but there's the 4th hit of the ball game for the Blue Jays, and that is their first leadoff hitter to get aboard tonight. So Martinez with the single into left field, and now Toronto's best hitters are coming up: Delgado, Fulmer, and Batista. Well, Roger has been in control.
And just attacking the hitters with strike 1 and then expanding the zone with the fastball. And he's made some quality pitches on the first pitch as well. Tied up quite a few hitters on an 0-0 count.
14 first pitch strikes make it 15 for Roger Clemens. 15 first pitch strikes out of the 21 hitters he's faced. And if you allow this guy to get ahead of you the way he's throwing tonight, you have no shot. And to this point, the Blue Jays haven't had a shot. 0-2 to Delgado.
Oh, breaking ball up in the zone. Carlos Delgado sees it. Oh, just a little bit late on it. Not wanting to pull the trigger. Still fooled on a breaking ball up in the zone. You don't see that too often from Delgado.
Fastball tails low and away. It's 1-2. Delgado, who came into the ball game tonight, second in the American League with a .356 on base percentage, third in home runs with 39, and fourth in RBIs with 129. And Roger Clemens with a 1-2 to Delgado and a base hit into left field. And so the Blue Jays, for the first time all night, have 2 runners aboard. In fact, it's the first time they've had a runner as far as second base.
And 2 nice job of hitting by Martinez and Delgado, both going the other way. Saw him swing through the breaking ball the last time. Here's a little fork ball up in the zone, stays with it. Nice 2-strike swing by Delgado, shooting it through the hole.
Now suddenly the Blue Jays have the tying run at the plate with nobody out. Brad Fulmer is the hitter. Fulmer is 0 for 2. Brad, one of 3 Blue Jays with 30 or more home runs, and Jose Cruz, who will likely hit in this inning, has 29 home runs.
Well, we're talking about Roger Clemens. Esteban Loaiza, since the first, second, third inning, has pitched extremely well. Kept him in the ball game.
Fulmer went around. It's a strike.
Put him in a position. You know, you talk about the spacious outfield, 399 left center, 385 right center, but awfully short down the lines.
318 down the left field line, 314 down the right field line. But it's Death Valley out there in left center.
We've got a couple guys that can reach any part of this park in Fulmer and Batista right now.
And Fletcher to follow them. Fly ball into short right center field, and that's Clay Bellinger. Bellinger with an excellent jump. One out, and it'll bring up Tony Batista, who's 1 out of 2.
Well, you take that fastball on the inside corner. Great job of Bellinger, not playing that much out there, taking control of the outfield, telling O'Neill he's got it the entire way.
So Bellinger continues to play in center field as Bernie Williams nurses a pulled calf muscle. Bernie had missed a half a dozen games with a sore rib cage. Then he came back, and in one game he pulled the calf.
The infamous obliques.
And now Batista with a hit and 2 at-bats tonight. And again, Clemens gets ahead, 0-1.
Oh, he got away with one there. Hanging breaking ball up in the zone. Tony Batista took a real good swing at that. And that's when you sit back and you go, you know, that might have been my pitch. Ball up in the zone. Oh, give me that one again, Tony says.
Batista with 104 runs batted in. And now the 0-1 with 2 on and 1 out. Just missing inside. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Tony Batista started to get on this roll. Pitchers would attack him with this open stance, trying to disrupt his rhythm. Starts way open, and then he closes the front side. And it is all a timing mechanism for it. It's a comfort level. Try and make him stay in this position a long time. See how he continues to coil? Continues to keep turning in. Try and get the pitchers to hold the ball a little bit longer, throw his timing off, especially when he's in one of those grooves, when he's just rocking and rolling.
When he's got that wide open stance of his, and then immediately part of his mechanism is to close up.
Right.
Wouldn't it make sense to just bust him in on the fists all the time?
No, because he gets to that point, and the first thing he can do is pop those hips and get to that fastball very, very well.
Here comes the 1-2. Strikeout number 5 for Roger Clemens, and now there's 2 out.
Talk about his hips, Charlie. Notice how his hips are still open. Clemens goes with the fastball, a little cut action away. Hips are already gone, just waves at that fastball. Nice pitch, Roger Clemens. Still open, gone.
And so Clemens has managed to jack it up a notch after surrendering a couple of leadoff singles. He gets Fulmer to fly to short center field, and he strikes out Batista. It brings up Darren Fletcher. In the meantime, Posada and Clemens talking about what they want to throw to Fletcher, who has bounced into a double play and flied to short.
They're going to throw him fork ball after fork ball after fork ball, is what Roger Clemens told me at the start of the game tonight.
Martinez leading off second base, and Delgado's off first. And there's one, and it's 0-1.
Darren Fletcher, a very good fastball hitter, does not come off it. 0-0, 0-2, doesn't matter. Refuses to get beat with the fastball.
So the Blue Jays had first and second, nobody out. Now there's 2 out. And a fly ball into short left field. There's Justice. So Clemens gets into a jam and gets right out of it. At the 7th inning stretch, Yankees 3-zip. Next Tuesday night, as you take a look at Bernie Williams, he'll be back certainly by then with a whole calf muscle at the moment. Indians and Red Sox, or the Yankees and the Blue Jays. Now, the Indians and Red Sox, if all goes according to plan, the pitching matchup that night will be Dave Burba against a certain Pedro Martinez.
He's good.
As Joe Torre and his Yankees, their magic number is down to 13. And the way things are going, within the hour, it'll be down to 12. No balls and 1 strike to Scott Brocious, who's 0 for 2 tonight. But what an inning it was for Roger Clemens in the top half of the 7th inning. He gives up leadoff hits to Martinez and Delgado. First time all night the Blue Jays actually have a runner as far as second base. As Brocious skies one into short left field. And is caught by Shannon Stewart. One out here. Let's go back to Bristol, find out what's going on there. Billy?
All right, Charlie, back out to Cleveland for the Indians and the Red Sox. And Cleveland blowing it open here in the fourth. They're up 3-1. Manny Ramirez, 3 RBIs here, giving him 101 RBIs now on the season. The bases were loaded. And in there at the plate there. And it's now 6-1 in favor of Cleveland.
Bad news for the Red Sox in Cleveland. Bad news for the Blue Jays here in New York, who trail the Yankees 3-0. And Clay Bellinger lays off slider. 1 ball, no strikes. To finish a thought on Roger Clemens. So he gives up 2 hits to lead off the 7th inning to Martinez and Delgado. First and second, nobody out. Blue Jays have Fulmer, Batista, and Fletcher coming up. Between them, 85 home runs this year. So what does he do? Gets Fulmer to fly to center. Batista strikes out, and Fletcher flies harmlessly to left field.
All quality pitches as well. Guy never panics.
He ripped their heart out.
Short porch or not, still continued with his aggressive pitching, throwing strikes. Got Batista to chase, and then some harmless fly balls after that.
Bellinger skies one to straightaway center field, and Jose Cruz barely has to move a muscle. There's 2 out.
Hey, on the other side, this Loaiza kid's not throwing bad at all.
Chuck Knobloch, 3 at-bats tonight, and he has led off each time and gotten on base each time. In the first inning, hit by a pitch. In the 3rd inning, he doubled into left center field. Would score a run, and in his last at-bat, a single up the middle. So Knobloch has more than held up his end of the bargain tonight as the Yankee leadoff hitter with 2 out. Takes a strike, it's 0-1.
Even with 2 strikes, continuing trying to work the count, seeing some pitches.
So Esteban Loaiza has given up only 3 runs and 6 hits to the Yankees. But the way Clemens is going, it might as well have been 100 runs. No balls and 2 strikes to Knobloch.
Part of the job description of being a catcher. Little bell ringer. Foul ball straight back. Darren Fletcher. Doink. That gets the old mothballs loose.
Here comes the 0-2. And I continue to marvel that guys like yourself, you're a reasonably intelligent man.
Reasonably.
Why you take that abuse and guys like Piazza, they don't want to be moved from back there.
Growing up, you were forced into believing that you get to touch the ball all the time. You get dirty. The game can't start until you stick your fingers down and tell the pitcher what to do. The cool fact that you're the only guy in foul territory. Just those type of things. And then it just tends to grow on you.
There's Jorge Posada. But between getting leveled on plays at the plate, catch and foul tips, how many broken fingers did you get?
I broke my thumb, and my ring fingers on both sides are crooked beyond repair, I think. Last year I got bowled over at the plate. You see Jorge Posada with the thumb guard there on his left hand. That kind of keeps that thumb ligament intact. But I got bowled over at the plate and was walking around like a lobster for 2 weeks on the DL.
That's my idea of fun. And here is Chuck Knobloch, who's now 3 for 3. Now let's go to Bill Pito with another update. What you got there?
All right, Charlie, we have the White Sox and the Tigers. Chris Singleton, one-time Yankee farmhand, is playing the outfield for Chicago. Damon Easley here for the Tigers. And watch Singleton go back to the track, back to the wall, and make a spectacular catch. Watch this again, robbing Easley of a home run. Remains 1-0 White Sox, top 4.
Jim Parquet with reason to celebrate. How about that catch? Now Derek Jeter with Knobloch at first base. on base all 4 times tonight. Jeter is 1 out of 3, a run scored. Chuck Knobloch.
Now, you get a guy like that, it just puts such immense pressure on you when he's on a roll, getting on base every at-bat, seeing 7, 8, 9 pitches in AB. Derek Jeter hitting behind, it just puts so much pressure on you, especially defensively.
Into the upper deck. And with Chuck Knobloch doing what he's doing as the Yankee leadoff hitter, they can live with his throwing problems.
Well, he's doing a lot better on that as well. Maybe some of that had to do with the elbow and arm problems that he had, but been a lot better lately out there at second base. Continues to work hard. Never a question about his work ethic. And to me, some of the comments that George Steinbrenner was making about his toughness and just not founded. Chuck Knobloch's a gritty, hard-nosed ball player.
I'll tell you what, those comments unified the Yankee team behind their second baseman more than anything.
I tell you, that'd be a great feeling for him, too.
Here comes the 1-1 to Derek Jeter. And, of course, Joe Torre has been unfailing in his support of Chuck Knobloch throughout the season. There's Joe.
I wonder why so many guys would just absolutely go to war for Joe Torre. It's reasons like that.
Here comes the 1-1. One ball, 2 strikes, and 2 out. So the Yankees, 25-time world champions.
Unbelievable.
And right now, they are playing about as well as anybody. Maybe the Giants are playing as well as anybody over in the National League. And the Yankees in the last 3-4 weeks look like the Yankees of old. And again, here's Jeter fouling off pitch after pitch.
Now, if you talk about frustration, outstanding breaking ball by Loaiza. Down and away, 1-2 count. Derek Jeter just flicks his wrist, fouls it off. You're supposed to swing and miss at that. Look at the location. Off the plate, down and away, way out on his front foot. Still, hands are back. Buy yourself another pitch.
That's what Knobloch does so well also. And now here's the 1-2. There goes Knobloch. Swung on and missed, strike 3. The inning is over. No runs and a hit. Well, the Blue Jays have 6 outs left to try to get back into this game. They trail by 3.
ESPN2's Wednesday Night Baseball is brought to you by Pemmican Beef Jerky. Need some help to get you through the day? Pack Pemmican Beef Jerky and you'll survive the day. And by TiVo. TV your way.
Jose Vizcaino now is at second base for the Yankees, and so Joe Torre told us before the game that essentially now Chuck Knobloch has become a 7-inning player for him, and he has done more than his end of the bargain tonight. Knobloch 3 for 3, hit by a pitch, got aboard all 4 times. And it's Jose Cruz leading off for the Blue Jays in the 8th inning. And with the Indians winning tonight, and the Blue Jays, if they can't come from behind, they'd fall 4 behind Cleveland in the wild card race. So they've got 6 big outs left against Roger Clemens, who has been absolutely dominating. Bellinger can't get it. One hop over the wall, a ground rule double for Jose Cruz to lead off for the Blue Jays here in the top half of the 8th inning.
Well, that ball was smoked. That's what they're trying to see on a consistent basis from Jose Cruz Jr. Power numbers are there. They're just trying to get him to continue to go the other way, not worry about pulling the ball so much. Boy, head down right over the ball, right over the plate. Extension through the ball rather than around it. Nice swing.
Well, quickly, the Yankees now get some bullpen activity for the first time tonight. With Cruz at second base, Mickey Morandini is the hitter. Morandini, 1 out of 2.
You know, the tandem of Jeff Nelson getting up.
And Mike Stanton.
Mike Stanton as well. Lefty-righty dependables.
Well, it's interesting that Stanton and Nelson are up combined because in recent weeks, Joe Torre's had a crisis of confidence with both of them. And they've been struggling. And if the Yankees, as they get ready with an eye toward October, if there's any question about the Yankees, it is this middle relief corps.
Well, it is, but you know how Roger Clemens has been getting, you know, into the 8th inning tonight. The Yankee starters have been pitching into the 6th, 7th, and 8th. Perhaps that Yankee bullpen was overused a little in the early part of the year, having to go in the 4th, 5th, and 6th inning when the pitchers weren't giving them quality starts.
Ramiro Mendoza, of course, is out for the year, and so that setup
gray area, yes,
is now in the hands. There's Billy Connors, the acting pitching coach. That Mendoza role now being filled by Dwight Gooden. And who would have thunk that 3 months ago? Morandini fouls it back. It's 2-2. You know, 3 months ago when the Yankees signed Gooden after he was released by his hometown team, Tampa Bay, it was almost thought as a charity gesture. Well, they sent Doc down to work with Dr. Connors. And they turned Doc from a hard-throwing right-hander into more of a pitcher, changing speeds, altered his arm angle a little bit. 3-2 to Morandini. $29,083 here tonight.
Beautiful night.
Oh. Wind is swirling, but not really a factor. That's fouled and out of play. Shannon Stewart on deck, and then Alex Gonzalez. Nobody out, 8th inning. Yankees 3 runs and 7 hits. The Blue Jays no runs and 6. Roger Clemens has not lost since coming off the disabled list in the middle of June. Won his last 8 decisions. 3-2 to Morandini. Can O'Neill get there? No, he can't. They're going to send home Cruz, and he will score on the single by Morandini. It is now 3-1. Morandini's second hit of the night. And Billy Connors makes his way out to the pitcher's mound.
Sorry, the Blue Jays, you've got to go to Esteban Loaiza, allowing this team to get back in this ball game. The job that he has done. 2 runs in the first, 1 in the third, and lights out since then. The Blue Jays, knowing their backs are a little bit against the wall, continuing to play hard.
And they also know that the Cleveland Indians are up 6-1 over the Red Sox at Jacobs Field tonight. So the Blue Jays, using that time-honored cliche, something about backs against the wall. So they've got one eye on the scoreboard and the other eye on 38-year-old Roger Clemens. So they break the ice. The Blue Jays do score the first run of the game. Morandini is at first with nobody out. And Shannon Stewart is nothing for 3. Shannon's got 19 home runs on the year. You know, the Blue Jays lead the American League in home runs with 226. Not bad when your leadoff hitter's got 19 of them. And there's Delgado's got 39 more.
Number 8 hitter with 29.
There's the 0-1. No balls and 2 strikes. In the 7th inning, the Blue Jays had their first 2 runners aboard. And then Clemens retired Fulmer, struck out Batista, and induced Fletcher to fly to right. So all already the Blue Jays with a franchise record with home runs. Stewart's the tying run. Base hit into center field. And so now the lead run will be coming up in the person of Alex Gonzalez.
Toronto Blue Jays still staying aggressive. Fastball up in the zone. Shannon Stewart, good bat speed. Clemens' velocity is still the same. Ball just stayed in the middle a little bit longer than they wanted to. Jorge Posada going out for that delay of game talk, and here comes Joe Torre.
And so Roger Clemens' night will be done as he leaves. The tying runs are aboard. Already, the fans here at Yankee Stadium cheer and stand and give a loud ovation to Roger Clemens. And so Roger Clemens' night is done. He cannot lose, he can only win. As Clemens came out of the ball game, standing ovation, high fives, and now it's time to ice it down. And here's Clemens' numbers. Struck out 5, walked 1 through 97 pitches. And at the moment is on course to win his 13th game of the year and his 9th consecutive decision. Now here's Jeff Nelson. Man who can make right-handed hitters' knees buckle and their eyes water.
Guy that relies heavily upon the little three-quarter slider that he throws almost to a fault. Still throws the ball 91, 92 miles an hour. Trying to get him to use that fastball more in a ground ball situation.
First and second. That's Morandini at second base and Shannon Stewart at first. Nobody out in the 8th inning. And Gonzalez, happy to see Clemens gone. He was nothing for 3, but not doing much better based on first appearances against Jeff Nelson. Nelson has had his share of differences this year with Joe Torre in the way he has been used.
Very vocal about it.
Uncharacteristic. You don't hear much about that in the Yankee locker room, about players being upset with Joe Torre. Gonzalez now no balls and 2 strikes, and Nelson has at least suggested that he's a free agent at the end of the year, that he may be signing elsewhere. On the other hand, George Steinbrenner has told Nelson he'd like to have him back. World Series titles have a way of mending feelings. And Gonzalez is struck out. 1 out.
Boy, something that's been missing from Jeff Nelson's repertoire is the finish on this slider. Watch how this ball just continues to accelerate out of the zone and away. 3 straight filthy sliders from Jeff Nelson. No, Alex Gonzalez was up there looking for it, got it, just didn't get to the ball.
Makes right-handers' knees buckle and their eyes water. 1 out, and Dave Martinez will be the hitter once this conversation between Jorge Posada and Jeff Nelson is completed. There's Joe Torre. There he is.
All right, there it is.
Can't get a clean picture of Joe. Enormously popular. And I think Joe has seen enough of Mr. Nelson. And he's going to bring in Stanton, the left-hander, presumably, to face Dave Martinez. And if looks could kill. Well, Joe and Jeff. Good conversation. Nelson with a smile. His night is done, and he gets an ovation from the Yankee Stadium faithful. 1 out in the 8th. Tying run still aboard. Yankees with a 3-1 lead. Most of you, as soon as we're done, will see the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks. Kevin Brown against Brian Anderson. This is a vitally important game for the Diamondbacks as we take a look at Jeff Nelson, who pitched the third of an inning, got his job done, striking out Alex Gonzalez. Earlier this afternoon, the Mets on a 3-run homer by Jay Payton in the bottom half of the 10th beat Milwaukee 4-1. Atlanta has got a 2-0 lead over the Marlins. And you've got the Diamondbacks playing the Dodgers tonight. And the Diamondbacks really in a must-win situation, or they would fall 5.5 games behind the Mets in the race for the wild card. So now the Yankees with Mariano Rivera on in relief, making his 61st appearance of the season. And he'll be facing Dave Martinez, who's got a hit and a walk and a ground out tonight. Rivera with a very un-Rivera-like 3.04 ERA. Still a very effective closer, clearly, as you take a look at the base runners. Morandini at second and Stewart at first.
Well, another guy with that sneaky fastball, 94 miles an hour, but it has a tendency to cut into left-handed batters. Likes to pitch inside. Good four-seamer as well. Basically comes right at you. Here it is. What are you going to do with it?
Rivera does not have the aura this year that he's had the last 2 or 3. He has been had more often this year than last couple. Here's the 1-0. That's nasty. 94 miles an hour, boring in on the fist. But wisely, Martinez lays off. It's 2-0, and Carlos Delgado's on deck, and Fulmer to follow.
That's what allows the Blue Jays to have that feeling we're never out of it. When you have 220-something home runs as a team, get a couple guys on, a bloop and a blast, and you're right there.
2 balls and a strike to Martinez. 226 home runs for the Blue Jays this year. They lead the American League. Second, the Angels with 216. 2 on, 1 out, a run in here in the 8th. And with Cleveland leading Boston 6-2 in the 6th. This obviously a pivotal portion not only in this game, but this season for the Blue Jays. This inning right here.
Talked about scoreboard watching earlier. I was talking to Terry Bevington, third base coach for the Toronto Blue Jays, and they said most definitely they know the task at hand, worrying about tonight's game, but knowing exactly what's coming up down the line.
One more game with the Yankees tomorrow, 3 in Chicago over the weekend, then 3 with the Yankees in Toronto next week. So Jim Fregosi and his team, they've got their work cut out for them. Indians leading the Red Sox 6-3 now in the 6th inning at Jacobs Field. 2 balls, 2 strikes, and 1 out. 2 on. The pitch from Rivera. Bloop into short center field. Bellinger can't get it. It'll load up the bases with 1 out. You talk about a bloop and a blast. Well, the bloop part's been taken care of.
And this guy can blast a few. Not a bad pitch by Rivera, up in the zone a little bit, allowing Dave Martinez to flare it into left field. But again, he keeps pounding you in. Pound, 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 pound. Dave Martinez, not a bad pitch.
Martinez has 2 hits tonight. So does Carlos Delgado. 2 singles and a strikeout. Bases are loaded. 1 out. This is probably the single most important at-bat of the season for the Toronto Blue Jays. With the bases loaded, they trail by 2. And Delgado, 1 ball, no strikes. With Cleveland winning, they can ill afford to fall 4 behind. Here's the 1-0 with the bases loaded and 1 out. Popped up. In foul territory, Posada has room.
Well, that's a nice pitch by Rivera up in the zone. Talked about the cut fastball coming into Carlos Delgado, ties him up, but job's not done. Brad Fulmer, here's the pitch. Posada setting up inside. Watch the pitch bore in on Delgado's hands, popping him up. Brad Fulmer, though.
Fulmer nothing for 3 tonight, but 31 home runs, 98 runs batted in on the season. 2 out, bases are loaded. Tying runs in scoring position. Loop into the glove of Vizcaíno, and the inning is over. So Rivera comes in, does the job, and the Blue Jays strand 3. And the Blue Jays have 3 outs left in the ball game. As we head now to the bottom half of the 8th inning, Yankees are sitting pretty, and the Blue Jays have their second pitcher of the night. And take a look at Joe Torre next to the ever-present Don Zimmer. Kelvin Escobar is the new pitcher for Toronto. Outstanding game for Esteban Loaiza. Went 7 innings, gave up 3 runs, 9 hits, walked 1, struck out 1 through 95 pitches. But Roger Clemens was the other guy tonight, as you take a look at Escobar's numbers on the season.
But still, Loaiza, after giving up runs early in the game, we talked about it, how he let his ball club try and get themselves back into this game. Just pitched outstanding from the 3rd inning on. Loaiza deserves a lot of credit for tonight's game as well.
Somebody's up past his bedtime. O'Neill, Martinez, and Justice to hit for the Yankees in the bottom half of the 8th inning. Remember, most of you will see the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks as soon as we're done. Kevin Brown and Brian Anderson, the scheduled pitchers at the Bob. First ball swinging. O'Neill grounds to Escobar. This Saturday on ESPN2, a college football tripleheader. Maryland and the Mountaineers, Indiana and Kentucky, and then Southern Mississippi and Alabama. We play 3 on Saturday on ESPN2. So with 1 out and nobody on, Tino Martinez is the hitter. It was Tino's home run in the 1st inning that gave the Yankees a lead that they've been sitting on ever since. And Tino's another one of these Yankees who, as the summer turns toward fall, his value seems to increase too. They keep talking about, oh, this is going to be his last year with the Yankees. It seems like they've been saying that pretty near every year except this first season. Yeah. And all he did was quietly come in and replace the Yankee legend, Don Mattingly.
Exactly right.
And here's the 1-0. Two balls and no strikes.
Sign of a good hitter. It's an old bat. Tino Martinez has been using this one for a while. You can tell by the nicks and scrapes on it. Got the ash finish.
Also lucky he hasn't busted.
Oh yeah, Kelvin Escobar, 95 mile an hour with a forkball to go along with it.
That'll kill a bat.
Oh.
Here comes the 2-1 to Tino. 1 out at the bottom of the 8th. 3-1. Well, they thought for a time this year that Escobar might be one of their starters.
Starter, closer, you know, he's done a little bit of everything. Found his effectiveness in the middle relief, the setup for Billy Koch.
3-1. Popped up. Fletcher runs out of room. Now you're sitting behind the plate, and there's a foul ball behind the plate. What is the first thing as a catcher you're looking for to find out whether or not the ball's in play, and how do you go about doing it?
Well, usually with a left-handed hitter, it's going to be off your left shoulder. First thing you have to battle, you've been squatting all night long, especially on a hot day. So when you stand up quickly, all the blood's going to rush from the top down to the bottom. So you get a little lightheaded and track the ball, follow it, get rid of your mask, and make the catch if it's in play.
Here comes the 3-2. Pop to the left side. Shannon Stewart gives way to the shortstop Gonzalez, and there's 2 out. And David Justice is now the hitter, and David tonight a hit, a walk, and he lined to second base. 295, 37 home runs, 107 RBIs. And Justice, who seemed to level off in Cleveland the last couple of years, has been able to elevate his game since arriving in the Bronx.
Well, a certain level of complacency might set in. A little comfortable with the way things are. Change of scenery. Get the blood flowing again.
Boy, was he shocked the day the trade was made. Of course, when the Yankees were talking to the Cleveland Indians in late June, they were talking about Manny Ramirez.
Monster trade they were looking at.
And then Ramirez, they were told by John Hart, would not be available. Oh, by the way, what do you think about Dave Justice? Said Hart to Brian Cashman. I'll get back to you. Got back to him. The deal was done. As we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, for the Indians, that shed $7 million from their payroll, and then they were able to go out and make some moves.
And plug some holes of their own.
And getting the 3 pitchers from Milwaukee, Ray, Woodard, and Wickman, has turned the Indians' fortunes around. John Hart saying the other day that if his team should get into the postseason, this may be his most satisfying year of all, considering the terrible start that Cleveland had this year.
Oh, and the injuries.
Here's the 0-2. Up high, 1 ball, 2 strikes. And you remember going back to spring training, Charlie Manuel had the intestinal problem.
Exactly right. Just look at the upper echelon teams like the Indians and the Yankees. Their ability to overcome adversity, you know, bonds them together. All the Strawberry sagas, Mel Stottlemyre sick, Joe Torre, all the problems that they've had. And you talk about a family unit, awfully close Yankee ball club.
Here comes the 1-2 to Justice. 2 balls, 2 strikes. You know, the Yankees, as storied a history as they've had, 25 world championships and 30-something American League titles, it's a team that has been shrouded in tragedy for years. You think of Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and Thurman Munson. Here comes the 2-2. 3-2. Now Mel Stottlemyre is fighting bone marrow cancer, and he's gone from the team for the rest of the year. Last year, the Yankees had, and Roger Maris, of course, who was a great Yankee, as you take a look at Monument Park out there. The Yankees had 3 of their players lose their dads last season.
Unbelievable.
And you remember how emotional it was for Paul O'Neill at the end of the World Series. His dad had died in the middle of the World Series. And here's the 3-2. But, you know, the tragedy in some bizarre way adds to the mystique and the lore and the things that they're able to overcome.
Sure does.
You know, in 79, the death of Thurman Munson. And last year, all of that, there's Thurman, captain.
Number 15. Guess what number I wore? Loved Thurman Munson.
Because of Thurman?
Thurman Munson.
Pop foul and out of play. And of course, Joe Torre fighting his cancer last year. It's a remarkable story here in the Bronx, beyond the enormous success that they've had over the past century.
The love affair that the city has with this team.
25 world championships, roughly one every 4 years. And now the 3-2 to Justice. Popped it up. Behind first base, Delgado, with not a lot of room. Makes the catch on the tarp, and the inning is over. So it'll be Tony Batista, Darren Fletcher, and Jose Cruz to hit for the Blue Jays in the ninth. Well, those of you who are standing by for the Dodgers and Diamondbacks, we'll get to that game. Most of you will see that as soon as the Yankees and Blue Jays are done here in the Bronx. Along with Mike Macfarlane, I'm Charlie Steiner, and a tightly played, perilous ball game. The Yankees 3 runs and 7 hits. The Blue Jays are running 9 hits. Kevin Brown and Brian Anderson are the starters tonight. That game coming up in about 12 minutes time. Another youngster up past his bedtime
No
tonight.
homework. No homework. Did his homework already.
Maybe he's not old enough to have any yet.
You never know. They start them early nowadays.
Tony Batista, Darren Fletcher, and Jose Cruz will hit against Mariano Duncan. Mariano Rivera here in the 9th.
Yeah. Mariano Duncan.
Long gone, isn't he?
Played some second base.
Yeah, he did. Tony Batista is the hitter. 1 out of 3. And quickly, Rivera's ahead. 1 ball, or 1 strike and no balls. Nothing in 1. So Atlanta's leading Florida 4-0 in the 8th. Maddox working on the shutout in Atlanta. Mets have won today. And so the Diamondbacks are in a real must-win situation tonight. Not unlike the Toronto Blue Jays, who see that the Cleveland Indians are leading the Red Sox 6-3 in the 6th inning in Cleveland. So if the Blue Jays cannot get back into this game, they will fall 4 games behind the Tribe in the wild card with 19 left on the season. Backhanded and eaten alive is Brocious as the ball goes into the left field corner, and it'll be a leadoff double for Tony Batista, his 2nd hit of the night.
Boy, eaten alive is the key word there, Charlie. Little topspin on that ball. Scott Brocious trying to backhand it. That second hop on the ground ball that has the topspin, ball just accelerates off the dirt. 1, now you get the spring action.
And Brocious is as good a defensive third baseman as there is in the American League.
He made a similar play earlier tonight. Not hit as hard. Flagged it down, couldn't make a throw.
Well, now the tying run is at the plate. Here's Darren Fletcher in the 9th inning. Cut fastball. 1 ball, no strikes. Fletcher is nothing for 3. Bounced into a double play. Popped to short and flied to left. One ball, 1 strike.
As a left-handed hitter, you get in there knowing that Rivera's going to pound that cutter in on your hands, and sometimes what you do is take the plate with you and start swinging at that ball off the plate on the inside corner. Just like that.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Clemens fed him a dose of forkballs tonight. Now he's got to deal with the cut fastball on the fist. This has not been a pleasant night for Fletcher.
I tell you, it's not. When Roger Clemens is on and then you have a solid closer in Mariano Rivera.
1 and 2. Off the fist. Does Posada have room? No. Jorge Posada, when the season began, one of the things that Joe Torre was talking about, if we are to succeed this year, Posada is going to have to really be our everyday guy. And boy, has he lived up to expectations and then some.
Just excelled this season. Always knew he could hit. Remember the first time I saw him, he had 5 balls on the screws against us when I was with the Royals.
Now the 1-2 to Fletcher. 1 out in the 9th inning. That'll bring up Jose Cruz.
Looking fastball in, knowing a fastball's coming and just not able to hold up. You just cannot catch up to that fastball. 95 miles an hour at the chest.
Cruz tonight, a ground rule double, and he was struck out twice. With 1 swing, he can tie this game up. 94-mile-an-hour fastball missing low.
He started away.
At second base, Tony Batista. His run doesn't count yet. Cruz, of course, does, and that's a strike. It's 1-1. Yankees with a win tonight, and with the Blue Jays and the Red Sox losing will whittle their magic number down to 11. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
So you gear inside for the fastball, and then he starts that thing off the plate away, and it cuts back on the outside corner. I tell you, just not fair.
So what do you do now? Come back inside?
Choke up, get on the plate, put the ball in play.
Going outside. 2 out in the 9th inning. That was really a lethal combination of pitches.
It certainly was. Get Darren Fletcher just pound fastballs in. Jose Cruz Jr. gearing up inside. Let me force him a fastball on the outside corner.
Talk about painting it black.
Oh. Again, Roger Clemens had a similar sequence against him where he struck him out of the way.
Mickey Morandini lays off a cut fastball. Mickey tonight is 2 out of 3. Putting up impressive numbers since coming over to the Blue Jays. And it's 2 balls and no strikes. Shannon Stewart is on deck. Brian Anderson to pitch for the Diamondbacks and Kevin Brown for the Dodgers as you take a look at Stewart. And here comes the 2-0 from Rivera. 3 balls and no strikes. Here's a 3-0 right down the heart of the plate. 3 balls and 1 strike. Joe Torre on the verge of beginning to fine-tune his rotation and his team for the postseason. Slashed foul 3 and 2. But Joe is not ready to coast home quite yet. Blue Jays are down to their final strike. Rivera delivers to Morandini. Do it one more time. Indians lead the Red Sox. Yankees a strike away from putting out the Blue Jays light for the night. Here's the 3-2. Well, the Blue Jays are still alive. Tying runs are aboard. Shannon Stewart is coming up. Stewart with a single and 4 at-bats.
Professional at-bat by Mickey Morandini, forcing him to throw strikes, not swinging at any of those pitches off the plate.
And Billy Connors can only look on. The Yankee closer, Mariano Rivera, with 2 on and 2 out. Stewart with that wide open stance. Whoa. Nice play by Posada.
Not as easy as it looks, setting up for an inside fastball, and then Rivera decides to throw that cutter. Nice play by Posada.
Catching a cutter must be just murder on that left thumb.
Well, actually, it's all deals with anticipation and, you know, repetition from catching the ball and knowing how it's going to react.
2 balls and no strikes.
Again, he's setting up on the inside corner. In a fastball count, that ball has a tendency to cut out over the plate. Those balls that cut may find a bat head.
Shannon Stewart in clutch situations on the season. On the year, hitting .331. The 2-0. Ball 3. On deck is Alex Gonzalez.
Billy Connors wants to have a word before things get too out of hand.
Gonzalez on deck. Now, what does a pitching coach tell a pitcher now? Is there something mechanical he might have seen?
Just possibly that he got a little hyped with 2 outs, knowing that the final out was at plate. Overthrowing a little bit, I think, is the key. He Jorge Posada setting up on the inside corner. You're seeing him reach across his body. The ball cutting on him a little too much is just a pure case of overthrowing right now.
So Billy Connors returns to the Yankee bench. Of course, he is now replacing the everyday pitching coach Mel Stottlemyre for the balance of the season, while Mel fights bone marrow cancer, awaiting a stem transplant. And now here comes the 3-0. Taking all the way is 3-1. Third base coach Terry Bevington flashing the signs. At second base, Batista. At first base, Morandini. Here comes the 3-1. 3-2. If nothing else, Rivera is milking the drama for all it's worth.
I tell you, it's kind of hard not to overthrow. The adrenaline flowing, the crowd on their feet, down to your last strike. Now's the time to take a deep breath, compose yourself, rock and fire.
And now 3-2 and 2 out, and the runners are going. They do it one more time as he fouls it back to the upper deck, falls out of the upper deck, and down to the net behind the plate.
Merciless. Booing a poor little kid that had popped out of his glove.
Welcome to New York,
yes.
son. So once again, with a 3-2 count, 2 out, 9th inning, Batista from second, Morandini from first will get the head start. So a base hit could tie the score with the runners running. With 3-2. Up the middle. Base hit into center field. One run will score. Morandini will hold at third. It's 3-2.
What an at-bat by Shannon Stewart. First, Mickey Morandini working the walk, giving him a chance to get to the top of the order. Shannon Stewart taking a lot of pitches. 3-2 count, putting the barrel on the ball. Outstanding at-bat. That's, you hear the term, big league AB. Shannon Stewart just threw one out.
And now it's up to Alex Gonzalez, the tying run 90 feet away. Gonzalez has failed to get the ball out of the infield tonight. No balls and a strike. He struck out twice. Popped to first and grounded to second. First and third, a run in, 2 out, 9th inning. Rivera delivers to Gonzalez. Inside and low. 1 ball, 1 strike. Dave Martinez, who has 2 hits tonight, is on deck.
And Mike Stanton has begun throwing back in the bullpen. Coming in to face Dave Martinez if necessary.
Now the 1-1. Popped foul behind first base. Martinez runs out of room. 1 ball, 2 strikes, and 2 outs. And so for what seems like the 100th time here in the 9th inning, the Yankee fans are standing and cheering and trying to will home that final strike. Outfield deep and straight away for Gonzalez. Runners at first and third. Here's the pitch from Rivera. Fly ball right field, playable for O'Neill. Yankees win. And the Blue Jays 90 feet away from tying the game. They score 1 in the 9th, but fall a run short. So the Yankees win it 3-2 as Roger Clemens wins his 13th. Esteban Loaiza loses his 11th. So for Mike Macfarlane, Charlie Steiner saying goodbye from Yankee Stadium. Yankees win it 3-2. Now it's out to Arizona. Dave Bryan, Brian McRae, the Diamondbacks and Dodgers from the Bob. Dave?